Of freedom.
I just don't stand.
Show streaming live across the world.
Yepper! Tuesday. Beautiful Tuesday. I mean, it's cold, it's a little bit wet, it's rainy, but it's Tuesday, and at least it's not snowing. I mean, that's something to look forward to at least, right? I mean, that's how we look at it right now. Welcome back to the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, broadcasting live across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to everything that you need there, the stream, the podcast, the social media sites, and of course, broadcasting live around the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and welcome to it. Tuesday is our day for the deep dive. Day for the deep dive. Yes, the deep dive today. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, is going to be coming on board with us today. We're going to be talking about, the top three different things. Question about whether or not the Department of Revenue is being politicized, whether the tests that are required for responsible budgeting and how Alaska Policy Forum, who we're kind of fans of in this show, it doesn't always get it right. And finally, the issue of the Cook Inlet and the Cook Inlet gas issue and how that is a problem that doesn't need to be subsidized, in Brad's opinion. So we'll get his take on those things, see if we agree or disagree with that today. Could be either or. It's not always a kumbaya around here when it comes down to that. So it should be an interesting discussion here this morning. All right. So we're ready to rock and roll, ready to go. And let's dive into it and see what you guys have to say about what is happening this morning as we go. All right, let's jump into some headlines. Oh, Chris Story, by the way, going to be joining us here in hour 2. Chris Story, hour 2. He'll be joining us and giving us the weekly positivity update, and we'll get our thing on. We'll get our life coaching lesson on here as we go through. So, what is the story? What is the story for the headlines? There's a couple different ones out here. For those of you who are light watchers, love the aurora watchers, the storm chasers, the solar storm chasers, Thursday, you should expect quite a show. And in fact, on Thursday, the aurora is going to be visible in 17 Northern American states. According to the Geophysical Institute up in Fairbanks at UAF, they have forecast auroral activity for Thursday that will be visible all the way across the country from Washington, Oregon, all the way over to Maryland and Maine. 17 states, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Indiana, Maine, and Maryland. So if you've got relatives over there, tell them to stay up Thursday night because they are expecting it to be a spectacular show. They said the lights are expected to be able to be seen all over the place. The NOAA says that the people wanting to experience the aurora should get away from city lights and that the best viewing time should be between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. local time. Now, the auroras are ranked on a scale called the KP index, and the scale being from 0 to 9. 0 obviously being nothing, and 9 being the sky is on fire, right? So the Geophysical Institute has forecast Thursday for a KP index of 6. So on the upper end of the scale, it should be kind of beautiful. And I know in Fairbanks, not quite getting dark up there. Here in South Central, it's starting to get dark right around midnight now. So maybe we'll have some beautiful auroras to witness on Thursday. I mean, I'll probably still be asleep because 4:30 comes awfully early in the morning. So I'll probably still be asleep, but we'll see. Maybe I'll stay up a little bit or set an alarm to get up and look out the bathroom window or something just to view the northern lights. But and I guess it depends on whether or not we still got this cloud cover. So, but Thursday nights, if you are experiencing or expecting a dark sky or clear sky rather, and a dark night, then the aurora will be for you on that night. And of course, anywhere else in the northern U. So tell all your friends. You want to know what it's like to live here? This is where it's all at, right here. Well, fire season is nearly over. I mean, a fire season officially usually ends at the end of July. That's what we're told. Fire season normally ends the end of July, and it's been a pretty quiet one across the state. I guess if anything, this is the only positive when it comes to this weird. I mean, we've had like the ninth wettest spring and summer since they recorded it, yada, yada, yada. But see, at this time last year, 3 million acres of woodlands had already burned in Alaska. As of this time last year. As of this year, as of Monday, yesterday, only 1,500 acres had burned. That's a significant difference. The state has responded in total this season to 151 different fires, and currently stands at level 1 preparedness. At this moment, there's only one fire that's actually being staffed by forestry and firefighting people, and that is the Lake George fire off the highway between Delta and Tok. But the fires have been quiet. The rain, on its other hand, has been anything but. Here in South Central, we've experienced the 7th wettest start to the summer, and it has been the wettest summer in 9 years. With the current weather pattern, it's believed that the fire season's not going to pick up. And according to the National Park Service, the Alaska fire season, as I said earlier, ends in late July. The low fire season's been a blessing for other areas in North America. Canada is currently undergoing a historically active fire season. On the federal level, Alaska's been able to send 100 firefighters and support personnel to Canada to help. That includes the hotshot crews that are normally very busy here in the state. And it's been a good year for that. But yeah, normally 3 million acres by this time, only 1,500 acres this year. So there's a silver lining. Every cloud has a silver lining, and that's where they are right now. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Do I have time to talk about this? I don't have time to talk about. I would love to. But I just don't really have time to get into it and do it justice. I guess I will mention this because I saw that this was happening, and for those of you who are traveling down in the Skagway area or doing some things, maybe you're planning on hiking the Chilkoot Trail this year. This may or may not have an effect on what's going on. A union representing the operators, engineers, and brakemen of the White Pass and Yukon Railroad have decided that they are going to strike. The union authorized a strike towards the beginning of the month, citing years of unaddressed complaints from the White Pass and Yukon route railmen. The general manager of the union said it's been 6 years since they've had any kind of raise or an increase, to which I said, Well, welcome to the party, pal. Anyway, they said the railroad has been doing some changes and some things, and they're actually accusing the railroad of wanting to essentially eliminate the brakeman position, which apparently would be uh, disadvantageous to many who are there. The union won't be able to officially go on strike until a 30-day cooling off period is completed. The union and the company were assigned a national mediator, but discussions ended in a stalemate. They're still hoping that they can come to some kind of agreement. The railroad is celebrating its 125th anniversary, dating to the time when the construction began on the railroad, which the daring construction of if you've ever ridden the White Pass and Yukon Railroad, it is an amazing trip. But the daring construction of the project began prior to 1900 and was completed officially in 1900. It climbs over 3,000 feet. White Pass Railroad did not respond to requests from KTUU for comments on this, but more information, more stuff. It's good. All right. Hey, look, we're coming up on it, and I'm ready to get into the. I'm getting ready to dive into the weekly top three. Brad Keithley, Alaskan for Sustainable Budgets, is going to be joining us here in just a hot second, and we are ready to go. Let's do this. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with a weekly top three. See what Brad has to say about some of these topics and whether or not we agree with him. And we will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Okay. Whew. All right. I saw something early on about no audio or something, but apparently it's back, or I don't know. Everything's working on my end. Might be you. I could never do anything wrong. Anything wrong. It's all on you guys. It's all on you guys here. Let's see. Shout out to Nona's Osteria, small restaurant in Wasilla. Really good food. I've been hearing about some really good restaurants around Wasilla lately that I've got to go check out. There's another one there's another little small place up on, is it Church in Selden? Where they do Southern food, like some Cajun and things like that, where it's all small batch and they do it in small batches and they sell it until they sell out and then they move on and everything else. It's so cool. Anyway, Nona's Osteria, 1 block off Parks Highway, Tommy Moe, turn right behind Tailgaters. Her pizza oven is from Italy. She makes her own pasta. Her pizza is not normal. She imports the spices, yada, yada, yada. That sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds delicious. Aren't they having mudslides in Skagway? It just seems like I don't know. Okay. All right. Anthony says, I hope the negotiations for the White Pass in Yukon, he goes, I hope the negotiations don't go, summons ultimate dad powers, off the rails. I can't wait. I can't wait. You don't get bumper music. Yeah, I've got the bumper music. You guys are not getting the bumper music. That must be why you weren't hearing the thing. Everybody else is getting the bumper music except for you. So let me shut off the bumper music and I'll turn it back on and we'll see if we can get it. All right. I see Brad's in the, he's been patiently waiting. He's just been patiently waiting. I should probably bring him on board because, good morning, my friend. How are you doing? How's life in the world out there?
Michael, I'm doing great. I'm still in Ireland, so I'm doing fine.
You're doing fine. What? Geez, what is it like? Midnight there or something like that? It's
No, it's like 3:20 in the afternoon. This is
oh,
actually
okay,
a
good.
civilized hour.
This is a civilized time for you. All right, good. All right. Whew. All right, I'm ready here. Let me just see if the listeners are actually hearing the bumper music. We'll see if they can hear that.
So you're going to blame this on the listeners?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I got a little bumper music playing there. You guys will let me know if you heard that or not. I mean, I could hear it. The radio could hear it. Apparently, only the folks on the internet couldn't hear it. So that's how it is. So tell us about how you've been doing. I mean, I see you've been doing all the different festivals and everything. How was it?
Oh, it's fun. It's a great time over here, and a lot of music and good friends, and amazingly enough, great food. I mean, I'm finding some really good restaurants over here. So music, history, culture, friends, food.
So you're in
Can't go wrong
Ireland.
with that.
Are you in Ireland or Scotland or both? Are you running? But where are you? Where are you?
I'm just
Just
doing
Ireland?
Ireland this time. Just Ireland this time.
Okay.
How was your fourth, by the way? We haven't
Huh?
talked since the fourth. How was your fourth?
Oh,
Your
my
4th
fourth
of
was
July.
that was an amazing 5 days of nothing. I did some honeydew stuff for the first day or so, and it was amazing. 5 days of vacation, 5 days of relaxation, 3 days of work, back to the weekend. I just want a 3 day weekend. That's all I want, or 3 day work week. That's all I want from now on. Just a 3 day work week. I mean,
Well,
the radio listenership would suffer, but at that point, I'd be like, it's okay. We'll just do
talk
it.
to your producer about that.
I know, really, I should. But he's a bit of an a-hole. That guy is a bit of an a-hole, all right? So it is what it is. All right, Brad. Well, we're getting ready to jump into it here and do our thing, and we'll be jumping in and making it work. So hold the line for just a second. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top three. We've got all the stuff going on there. I don't know why you guys can't hear the music today. Just something arbitrarily decided not to work. So we're gonna deal with it. It's on the podcast, so that's all good. Here we go. Common Sense Radio. All right, welcome back to the program. We're continuing now. It's Tuesday. That means the weekly top three. Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets for the last, I guess, 10 years almost, has been coming on the program and sharing with us and talking with us every Tuesday about what he sees as being the three biggest things we should be focusing on in the state of Alaska. Now, he and I don't always agree, but for the most part, we're in agreement on this stuff. Today's topics are interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on here. First and foremost, Brad, welcome. Thanks for calling us. He's out in Ireland today, enjoying a little Aaron Gobra or something. I don't know exactly what they're doing out there, but he's enjoying himself with the music and the food and everything else. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Michael. How are you doing today?
No complaints. I mean, it's a little rainy, but at least the world's not on fire and there's no snow. So those are my two high points for today. No snow and the world is not on fire. All right, Brad. Well, let's talk a little bit here about what the weekly top three and what's going on. First and foremost, there's a story of the Alaska landmine that talks about the director of the DOR, the Department of Revenue, how the tax director of tax had just apparently quietly been fired. And you're asking the question about the politicization of the Department of Revenue. Is that happening? And what does it mean? And is there evidence of something else going on? Give us your take on this.
Well, Michael, there's three positions in the Department of Revenue that are important. The commissioner for oil and gas tax purposes, our largest revenue source under current law. If you would adhere to the PFD statute, oil and gas taxes are still our largest revenue sources. three important positions: the commissioner, obviously, the deputy director, to whom the tax, or deputy commissioner, to whom the tax director typically reports, and the tax director. And those are the three key players. Now, their role is to administer the statutes, to administer the laws passed by the legislature. So we're not talking about changing the law here. We're talking about the roles that administer the statutes. And in my experience, and I'm sure a number of people who have dealt with oil and gas in the state, that administration has a lot of flexibility. It can be fairly tight. It can be fairly broad. It can really affect how much of the revenue is being collected. Since Adam Crum has been named Commissioner of the Department of Revenue, the Deputy Director has departed. Brian Fechter left under circumstances that weren't entirely clear. And now, last week or 2 weeks ago, the Tax Director, Colleen Glover, who had been there since the beginning of the Dunleavy administration, was, according to the landmine report, fired. And that's not good. I mean, I've dealt with both Brian and I've dealt with Colleen. They're very professional. They are solid people. Colleen has been there since 4 or 5 years, since the beginning of the Dunleavy administration. Very straightforward. Basically, what the job is to call balls and strikes. Did you comply with the statute? Did you not comply with the statute? And it's important to have somebody in those roles who's experienced and who is a good, solid umpire, referee that's calling balls and strikes. The concern that I have is that Adam is replacing these people because they're not as friendly as he wants to the industry. Brian had run in with the industry about some of the industry about a couple of issues as he's sort of the appeal process. The tax makes a decision, or tax director makes a decision, appeals up to the deputy director. He had a run in with the industry on a couple of issues. Colleen has had a run in with the industry on a couple of issues. Colleen's background was at Alaska, so it's not like she's coming in from out of left field or coming in from some position where anti-industry position. She was with Alaska, and she's had a couple of run-ins with industry, and those run-ins have now been followed since Adam has been commissioner with the departure of those two individuals. Adam has political aspirations. I mean,
Well, I mean, it wasn't this guy. He was just with the Department of wasn't he Health and Social Services Commissioner? I mean,
right,
he was just.
right.
I mean, what is his qualifications for being? I don't know if you have to have qualifications for being DOR commissioner, but it seems like he's hopping around the administration a bit.
Well, and you may recall he ran against Shelley Hughes for state senator when Shelley was first elected to that spot. So Adam's relatively young, has continuing political aspirations, and has been known to have good friends in the industry, oil industry, which is not. I mean, that's not a disqualifier. But when you couple that with Brian's departure after a couple of run-ins with industry, and now Colleen's departure after a couple of run-ins with industry, I begin to wonder. I'm beginning to get concerned that potentially what we have here is Adam currying favor with his industry friends in anticipation of a run for Crum for governor in 2026, or Crum for House or something. And industry backing would be important in a political campaign like that. You'd want to position yourself to have industry backing. And I'm a little concerned that what's going on here is we're beginning to tilt the Department of Revenue, the administration side of the Department of Revenue, critical pieces in the administration of the oil and gas tax code. We're beginning to tilt it away from calling balls and strikes and beginning to tilt it into a more favorable operation for industry. So it's something Landfield's got it identified in this week's in a column in his Sunday landmine column. He also has a column from last Friday, I think, that talks about Colleen's departure. It's not something that's been picked up by the rest of the press, but it's something that I think we should be concerned about, and something that, frankly, I'm going to follow fairly closely from here on in.
Because again, as you said, these are the ones that decide whether or not the producers are in compliance with state law. And that is where the revenue for the state is coming in. And if they cozy up too much to the producers, then obviously our revenues goes down. They're able to, they have some discretion. And as you said, flexibility and discretion in the enforcement of the law, and they can decide whether or not it's feasible. And although you've been accused of being a guy who doesn't care about, the taxes and oil and gas and stuff coming out, you do very much. I mean, you believe that, as I've said before, you believe that there's still money on the table, that we could address the tax law and actually get a little more. But it doesn't help if we pass the law and the people who are enforcing it are super friendly in the pockets of the oil industry, because then they just say, oh, yeah, sure, you don't have to pay that. I mean, they have the authority to actually do that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, no law is perfect. No law is absolutely perfect for every situation, and so you have situations come up where you have an interpretation of the law that's due, and there's interpretations that are more consistent with the law, less consistent with the law, but still within the boundary of what the law would provide. And that's why you have a tax director. That's the person to whom the auditors ultimately report. That's why you have a deputy director, deputy commissioner, to administer those sorts of things and to call balls and strikes. And when industry takes a position and says, "Ooh, the statute really means this," to say, "No, the statute doesn't mean that. From the state standpoint, the statute means this, and that's how we're going to administer the statute. If you don't agree with this, go to court or go to the ALJs, the administrative law judges." But this is the position we're taking, and it's those people, the ones that will say, "This is the position we're taking. If you don't agree with this, take us to court." Those are the people that we're talking about here: the deputy commissioner,
Right.
and the tax director. So
This,
if they say if industry says, "Well, you can interpret the statute this way," and if the tax director and the deputy commissioner say, "Well, okay, we'll interpret it that way," you can lose revenue. And Michael, let's think about who that revenue is coming out of the pocket of. The way we're going, PFD cuts is the marginal source of revenue. So what we're talking about is creating an opportunity for additional PFD cuts, additional revenue coming out of the pockets of Alaska families, middle and lower income Alaska families, and sliding over to the industry through this sort of looser administration.
this raises a bigger question, obviously. This is all happening on Dunleavy's watch. Does that mean that he is, I guess at this point, all in on the industry, being pro industry? Does he have he has some responsibility in what's going on here, I'm assuming, because he has to sign off on it, I would imagine, at some point.
Well, these are probably decisions that are within the commissioner's realm. Who fills the deputy commissioner slot probably does go to the governor. Who fills the tax director slot, I'm not as certain would go to the governor. Certainly, the governor can intervene and ask the commissioner what's going on. But I'm not comfortable saying that these are coming at the direction of the governor. I mean, Colleen was there for 4 years, did a great job for 4 years. All of a sudden, in the first year of Adams' administration, she's not doing a great job, and she's terminated. Brian was in OMB for a long period of time before he came over to Department of Natural. Before he came over to Department of Revenue, did a great job at OMB. Came over and was doing a great job at DOR. Adam comes on the scene, and Brian's gone. So this is not. If it was Dunleavy, I would think they would have been gone before. This is more attributable to Adam Crum coming in and becoming commissioner.
And so you think this is more about currying favor for future electoral aspirations than it is for protecting the state and protecting the revenue and getting the max resource that, which is the job of the DOR, is to maximize the resource revenue from the state.
That's the concern I have. We've never had really a revenue commissioner who's had political aspirations. We've never had a revenue commissioner who sat there and make sure his name stays out as a candidate for future situations. We've never had a revenue commissioner who's been in the mix for running for governor when the current governor's term expires. We've never really had the revenue commissioner has always been more a professional bureaucrat. I dare say more somebody who's interested in the position and doing the job there than he is, positioning positioning for future political office. Adam is unique in that regard. He's young enough and he's ambitious enough, and he's making sure his name's staying out there in a way that is different for the Department of Revenue. So you take that and you add in getting rid of Brian and Colleen, both of whom have had run-ins with the industry, as any deputy commissioner and any tax division head are going to do. You want them to have those run-ins with industry because you want them to be making sure that they're looking out for the state's interests. When the industry comes up with a crazy theory about why they don't owe taxes, you want a tax director and a deputy commissioner pushing back on that. So they've had run-ins, okay, but that they've had run-ins before. They had run-ins during Dunleavy's first term. It's when Adam came on board that this has become a problem. So it's something that we need to watch out for, because this could, if you got people who are bending over to help the industry inside the Department of Revenue, that can become a real problem.
Yeah. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. That's number one of the weekly top three. Number two has to do with the idea of a quote unquote responsible government. And it's a two-step. Give me a quick tease and we'll jump to the break, Brad.
Well, Alaska Policy Forum is making a big deal. It's come out with an article last week and now coming out with some ads that talk about the FY24 being a responsible budget, fitting within certain parameters that Alaska Policy Forum sees as responsible. There's really two tests for responsibility. One is, does it balance? The second is, who pays? And are you structuring who pays in a way that ensures that the economy is doing okay, is beneficial to the economy, and is fair across the board? And Alaska Policy Forum spends a long time talking about the first, absolute radio silence on the second, and I think that's a problem.
We'll talk about that here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're going to be back with more. Brad Keithley, the weekly top three, continues right after this. Don't go anywhere. Okay, Brad Keithley, our guest, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Let's go back to number one for just a minute, Brad, and put on your political analysis hat. Crum, aspirations for office, yada yada yada, but he was the commissioner of Health and Social Services. Donna says he left a bit of a mess when he left there. When he left HSS, but he oversaw a huge component of the COVID lockdowns and everything. I mean, do you think he may have political aspirations, but that may have been damaging to him? I mean, at that point, what do you think? Is he, does he have a chance? I mean, I would not think that the logical jump would be from the commission to the governor's race, or even to a Senate race, maybe a House race, but I just don't see, he may have aspirations, but that seems like that's quite a leap.
Well, what we've done with financing is make this a money game. I mean, by removing the financing limits, money is now a big part of whether you have whether you have electability or not. And let's think in the state who has money. Let's think in the state who has enough money to influence the outcome of elections. Well, that'd be the oil industry. And if you it's if you were gonna try to curry favor with somebody, the oil industry would be the one to do it with. And Michael, the test of is Adam electable? Does Adam have issues that could get in his way? I'm not sure that's the complete test. If he thinks he's electable, if he thinks he has a chance, he thinks he has a chance of getting elected, and he thinks the way to get there is by currying favor with the oil industry. The oil industry is not going to stop it and say, "Oh, I mean, you have
Right.
no chance. Go away.
Right. They'll
Don't
still,
ever
yeah.
bother us again."
Yeah, they'll still throw money at it. If they think they can get some quid pro quo back, they'll definitely throw money at it, whether he wins or not at that point, because he could still help them off in the future. It's a little
And
disappointing. Go ahead.
and I'm not saying there's a memo that says from the oil industry that says, "Adam, you get rid of these people, we'll back you." That's not what's going on. This is much more subtle. This is
Sure.
much more. I hang out with my friends. My friends in the oil industry. They're complaining about Brian. They're complaining about Colleen. They're complaining about this issue or that issue. I like my friends. I want to be friends with my friends. I want my friends to support me. So what if I get rid of them and get people in that they don't complain about? Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned is going on here.
Yeah. Well, I could definitely see that. And again, whether or not the governor has direct well, he has direct influence on it, but whether or not he has direct culpability in what's going on is another thing. I mean, at some point, he is ultimately responsible. If his commissioner is running amok, he should probably be asking the hard questions of what's going on here. Unless, of course, he also doesn't mind the state getting a little cozier with the oil companies. I mean, he may have aspirations for something larger. Maybe he can ride on that coattails. Who knows?
Well, I'm sure he does have aspirations for something larger, but you don't. Yeah, this wouldn't be the way to do it because this can just blow up in your face. Here's another issue about this. There was no discussion when Brian Fector departed the deputy commissioner's role. There was no discussion when Colleen departed. I mean, the what the landmine said is she was terminated. There was absolutely no notice of that, no discussion of it. Legislators said they weren't notified of it.
Right.
So it's happening in the dark, right? And when things happen in the dark, you begin to wonder what the motivation is and why they want to keep it in the dark or why they won't at least talk about it. So
Right. I
that's
mean, this happened with Colleen. This was like 3 weeks ago. I mean, you're finding out about everything after the fact that she's terminated. They haven't named it. The assistant, the deputy commissioner, they said is taken over, but he's still listed as the deputy, not acting, director. Yada yada yada. So
tax director, right?
so it seems like it's all very hush hush, quiet quiet on the QT. They're hoping nobody would notice, kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, Brian and industry, or Brian and Colleen, both had run-ins with industry. So it's not like something else was going on. It doesn't seem like something else was going on. Seems like industry was pushing back, and Adam caved. So it's a concern.
Interesting. Brad Keithley, our guest, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We're getting ready to rejoin here. We're about 30 seconds out. Again, you will not hear the music, apparently. Brad, are you hearing the music? You're
No.
not hearing? Yeah, you're not hearing it at all. I don't want to have to restart the whole stream and do all that kind of stuff. So you guys are just going to have to suffer in silence for a few minutes here as we bumper in and bumper out. That's how it's going to work. Unfortunately for you, but I can hear it, so I'm happy. And the radio can hear it. So here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. That's right, not your daddy's talk radio, nor do we play one on TV. Although I could. I am a daddy, but just not yours. Welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show. Brad Keithley is our guest. The weekly top three continues. Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Number two, the Alaska Policy Forum, who I agree with on a lot of issues, did put out this piece talking about Alaska has a responsible government now. Yay. But at the same time, talking in kind of platitudes about a broader, more secure fiscal plan and everything else. They keep using that word responsible, though, and I'm not sure it means what you think it means, kind of thing. Brad, you said there's a two-stage approach, and they're only addressing one stage.
Right. There's two tests of whether a budget is responsible or reasonable or whatever phrase you want to use. One is a balance, and the second is how do you get it balanced? Who's paying for government? And that test is important from not only the standpoint of fairness, that you want to make sure it's broad based, that nobody has to pay too much, but it's also important from the standpoint of economic impact. You want a revenue base that has a low impact across the economy and helps promote the economy or helps maintain the economy, as opposed to unfairly penalizing one piece of the economy or another. The Alaska Policy Forum has come out with this piece that says, "Oh, Alaska has a responsible budget." Reminds me of what Dunleavy said in his veto statement that Alaska has a reasonable budget. Well, it does in the sense that it balances. It does in the sense that revenues equal spending, and we're not drawing down savings. We're not taxing future generations for one of the few times. But that's only the first test. The second test is, how are you balancing it? Who's paying the burden of government costs? And this budget is far from responsible or far from reasonable in connection with who's paying. It's being paid in large part through PFD cuts, which are, as Matt Berman from the ISER has told us, are the most regressive taxes ever. That fall hardest on middle and lower income Alaska families. And as ISER told us in 2016, in the 2016 ISER study, has the largest adverse impact of any of the revenue options on Alaska families. And so you can't say that a budget is responsible and put the period there, or a budget is reasonable and put the period there, when the second test, the who's paying test, is so badly violated, is so badly missed. Think about it this way. Think about it if the budget was balanced through an income tax, through a progressive income tax that took huge amounts from the top 20% in order to balance the budget. Alaska Policy Forum would be all over that. They'd be complaining about the undue burden on high income, how anti-economy that is, how anti-investment that is, how concerning that is in terms of population movement. Well, we've got an income tax. It's just hugely regressive, taking most of it from middle and lower income Alaska families, increasingly regressive as you go along. And that approach, that unbalanced approach, that regressive approach, that tilted approach, just like progressive is tilted upward, regressive is tilted backward, that regressive approach has the largest adverse impact on the overall economy. So I think it's disingenuous and borders on dishonest for Alaska Policy Forum to be, touting that this budget is responsible and reasonable and fits its criteria, when the second test, when whether who's paying and how it's balanced, is such a mess right now.
Well, I think it's interesting because a policy form ostensibly is about smaller, more limited government, and yet this budget does anything but that. It obviously gives more and more to government. It takes from the PFD and gives to government and does all those things. So while you're right, technically it falls within the boundaries of responsible because it lives within the expenditure versus revenue argument, it's also growing the size and scope of government, and you would think that they would not cheer that on, or at least there'd be a mention of it saying, well, it's good that we're responsible, but at the same time, we're growing government. They don't say anything about that in that article, which I found telling, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's there's another agenda going on here by Policy Forum, and the agenda is to sort of support the top 20% Republicans, and say government's good as long as it's balanced. However it's balanced, it's good as long as it's balanced. It sort of repeats the themes of the Alaska Senate. Sort of repeats the theme of some of the House Republicans. Sort of repeats the theme of the governor. But you can't say that. I mean, that's not how you determine what a responsible, reasonable budget is. You've got to meet both tests. You can say it's partly responsible. I mean, it's finally, the sums on both sides balance out. But you can't say it's responsible, period, or it's reasonable, period, when you've got such a huge imbalance in the who pays category, and such an adverse impact on the overall economy from the way in which the revenues are being raised.
It's interesting. Jeremy says unsustainable budgets are not balanced budgets. And there is an issue of sustainability when you talk about balancing a budget. Sure, if you want to balance a budget one year, but you know that you can't do that moving forward, is it truly a balanced, responsible budget?
Yeah, yeah, and sustainability has a lot of components. Also, one is the economy sustainable? Is the economy does the economy grow under the kind of budget you've developed? I mean, that's one of the concerns that we've had in
Right.
sustainable budget since the very beginning. I mean, are you developing your budget in a way that allows your economy to continue to grow, that doesn't impede the growth of the economy? And again, back to the 2016 ICER study, PFD cuts have the largest adverse impact of any of the revenue measures on the overall economy. So the answer
Well,
the answer is no. I mean,
I think we've proved on this program that the vast majority of movers and shakers in the state of Alaska don't really care about the private economy. They care primarily about the government spend and the public economy, and if that's okay, then they can go home and sleep at night, and it's fine. It doesn't matter who else has to pay the price for that kind of stuff.
yeah,
I think
you wouldn't think Policy Forum would fall in that category, would you? But they do.
again, that was what was shocking to me because again, ostensibly their argument and their whole premise is smaller, more reasonable, more sustainable governments. That's what they've talked about in other things and everything else, and being fiscally responsible and all that. And this just doesn't seem to fall in that category. A little bit, I think they've fallen into that classic trap of again, no taxes, the PFD's welfare kind of thing, which is I think a problematic approach to say the least.
Well, it's
Let
the top 20. It's the top 20% approach. I mean,
Yeah.
what they've fallen into is the trap of saying the only people that count are the top 20%. The rest of you, 80%, we don't care about you.
Yeah.
That's a horrible place to be.
Let's talk about number 3, which of course is the Cook Inlet issue. The gas, it's diminishing. They're talking about different alternatives. We could see an increase in the South Central area. Everybody who's on the gas system in South Central could see an increase of up to a third in their costs. There's some other things they could import. They could do some things, but your whole point is don't exacerbate the problem by trying to subsidize it, Brad.
We do have a problem. The Cook Inlet is, in terms of gas reserves, producible gas reserves that we currently have behind pipe, it's running lower. The deliverability is running lower. We had this problem 10 years ago. Before then, we didn't have storage, and so when you needed more gas in Anchorage or needed more gas for electricity, you just turned the valve, turned up the production, or brought more wells on, brought increased production from wells that you had turned down, and met the demand. 10 years ago, we didn't have enough deliverability to meet winter peak, so we built storage to store gas in the summer, store excess surplus gas in the summer, and then bring that out of storage like you would have a super well. Bring that out of storage in the winter to meet deliverability. Now we've got a problem that there's, even with the storage fields, there's not enough gas being produced to meet the winter peak from a combination of the gas fields and the storage. So we've definitely got a problem. There are solutions to it. There's a study group that's been looking at it. They've outlined solutions of bringing in LNG in different ways, including floating LNG, floating regas units, which is what Europe used when Russia cut off Europe. Germany put in a bunch of floating regas units, and that's how they've met their demand. Another is reversing the old Kenai LNG facility to bring gas back in through the old Kenai LNG facility. And then they've talked about a couple of pipe options. One is a bullet line that would come down from the north, bring gas down from the North Slope solely for Fairbanks and South Central. And the other is the big LNG or the big gas line that we've talked about forever, that would drop off gas in South Central and drop off gas in Fairbanks as part of the big exportation program. All of those have costs associated with them. I mean, if we're going to run low or produce gas, all of them have costs. Building an LNG facility, even a floating LNG facility, is going to have cost to it. Building the line down, one of the two pipelines down from the North Slope, is going to have cost to it. And now we've got people talking about, well, no, they're expensive, hugely expensive. They're going to dump a bunch of costs on South Central, but we can subsidize those with state money. That's the last thing, absolute last thing we need to do.
It's it's interesting to see the kind of the scramble and everything else. And of course, once South Central has a problem, then we might see solutions, even though Fairbanks has been struggling for years. It'll be interesting to see what the solution is. I mean, I definitely have benefited for the last 10 years of living down here and experiencing cheap energy. Can we keep it up is the question. And do we need that subsidy? I think that's due for a broader discussion, Brad. I think we could have a broader discussion on that as well.
And we will as this goes along, but I want to get it surfaced as an issue early on, because the last thing we need is to get a big, rolling support system for subsidies rolling into the next legislature.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on board.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Folks, we're out of time for this segment. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. I mean, in an ideal world, we would have a line that could export. I mean, it seems like such a shame, Brad, that we're struggling for oil and gas when we've got 17 trillion cubic feet of gas on the North Slope. That seems to be, the idea and the thought that we may have to import our own gas seems almost offensive at that point. I mean, the fact that we're sitting on so much and can't seem to do anything with it.
Well, and that's what some people are going to say. Some people are going to say we can't. This is what Sean Parnell said in 2013, the last time we had a gas crisis. They're going to say, "Oh no, Alaska is not going to import gas. Period. End of statement. I don't care what we have to do. Alaska is not going to import gas." Well, last time that he made that statement, we spent a whole bunch of money in terms of tax credits to encourage the Cook Inlet producers to go out. I mean, essentially subsidize them to go out and explore for additional gas. And we did get additional gas supplies out of that, but it was at significant cost to the state treasury. This time we're going to have the same sort of reaction. Yes, Alaska can't have imported gas into it. Well, it's economics. I mean, the economics are the big line. The big export line is hugely expensive. We can't find anybody in the globe yet that wants to do the deal with us for gas from the huge export line. The bullet line, just bringing gas down just solely to Fairbanks and South Central, is even more expensive on a per unit basis. Even more expensive than the big line. So it's the economics are bad to find our own gas. Somebody's going to pay for it. I mean, if we do those and we subsidize them, again, what's the marginal source of revenue in the state? It's PFDs. We're going to be taking it out of the pockets of middle and lower income Alaska families to subsidize, making life a little more tolerable for people in South Central. We ought to follow the economics. The economics are likely going to lead us to LNG. Yeah, it's odd that we got all this gas up north and we're going to be importing LNG, but that's what the economics say. That's what the dollars and cents say. And we ought not to deviate. Well, we ought not to try to override that by saying, well, the state will just punch in a bunch of money to try to make it lower cost.
Well, thankfully, at the time Parnell was talking about all that, we had billions of dollars in savings, and now we're not at that point. So hopefully it's not as attractive as it was during his heyday, where we had all this excess money and we're like, we could do stuff with this. Hopefully cooler heads prevail on that, and we could do it because we don't have that kind of liquidity that we did back then.
Well, where do we have that money, Michael? We have it. We have it
Well,
in the
it's
permanent
true.
fund.
It's true. I mean, there's
And
billions of dollars in the permanent. I'm still hoping that they, that all the cooler heads do prevail and nobody loses their mind and decides to tap into the corpus of the fund.
well, it wouldn't be tapping into. So how they would explain it is we're going to invest it. The permanent fund is there to be invested. So we're going to invest it in this project, and it'll produce returns. It'll produce huge amount of money for the state in terms of the dollars that we'll get back on it. Not going to happen. So, somebody's going to say that somewhere along the way that we'll just invest the money in the bullet line. We'll get our money back by the tolls that are the bullet line or the big line. We'll get it back by the tolls that are going to be charged. This is a place. This is a place where we finally ought to draw the line and say economics prevail.
Yeah.
What's the lowest cost way of continuing to meet the energy needs of South Central? And it's not only gas, it's not only NSTAR, but it's also the gas fired electric generation plants that we have. So
Right.
part of the solution may be more wind turbines, maybe more solar panels, maybe more tidal energy to reduce the electric demand on gas.
Well, that's part of that article that talks about in the Alaska Public, the article that talks a lot about this is that they're looking more and more at these renewables, which of course has its own conversation that that needs to be required because it can't always provide. I mean, we've seen that with the wind and everything else, projects around the state. They can't always provide a reliable source of energy. Gas is still, outside of nuclear, the best, the least worst form of energy production, and so we need to do something. I mean, that I think any of the renewables is going to be nothing more than a stopgap or maybe a feel good measure. And the investment of that kind of infrastructure is still huge for that
Yep,
kind of
yep.
stuff.
And we need to look at the economics of that. But we ought to find. I mean, here's the point. Instead of just rushing out and saying like Parnell did in 2013, or as some people are going to say now, no, we're not going to import gas. Period. End of statement. We're going to use Alaska gas wherever it comes from. Instead of making that, we ought to continue to do these economic analyses and figure out what the lowest cost way is for South Central to have those supplies, and
Yeah.
let the economics prevail as opposed to the politics prevail.
It's interesting. This is again another full conversation that we could have here in the future, but definitely an interesting discussion. Brad, I hope you enjoy yourself over there. More music festivals to come, and then you'll be back on Terra Firma here in Alaska sometime in the near future.
Yep. I'm headed back at the end of this week, so I'll be back back domestically for next week's
You
show.
you almost hate it, right? I mean, it's just so nice to be over there. My wife is always so jealous when you post all the pictures of Ireland. She gets mad at me. She's like, "When can we go to Ireland?" Well, one day when we're fabulously rich and wealthy and handsome and everything else, and I'm retired, maybe we can do that. That'll be fun. So, anyway, Brad Keithley, thank you so much for thanks for coming on. As always, it's good stuff. I hope you enjoy yourself while you're there.
I will, Michael. Thanks as always for having me.
Appreciate you being part of it today. All right, folks, that brings us over to our two of the big radio broadcast. We're going to jump into this right now. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty based, free thinking radio. Maybe you hear the music, maybe you don't, but here we go.
show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to the program, hour 2 of the big radio broadcast, and we are ready to go for today. Hour 2 just finished up with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, talking about the weekly top 3. It was a good discussion, good and fun and good discussion. If you missed it, you can go back and pick it up on the podcast and talk about it there and watch it, listen to it, love it, learn it, do all that stuff. Hour 2 of the program today, we are going to be joined in just a few moments by Chris Story, the man from Homer, the author, the potter, the realtor, the radio show host, the positivity guru. He's going to come on board and share his thoughts and dreams and ideas with us. It's the weekly uplift, the weekly life coaching lesson, and it's something that I look forward to every week. I mean, I don't know if you do or not, but I hope that you do. I hope that you find that to be enjoyable and look forward to it as much as I do. I look forward to it every week. In the meanwhile, I do have some headlines, but as I like to do after our conversations with Brad, a lot of the times, I want to bring the phone lines up and see what you guys have to say. 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. Phones are live and rocking right now. If you want to sound off, we'd love to hear what you have to say. And we can have those conversations with you right now. Any of the topics that Brad brought up or something, tangential to that, I would love to hear what you have to say. Again, special thanks to our friends at Satellite West. You could find them at satellitewest.com. They have the tools and the talent to keep you connected, whether it is in Tin City or whether it's up on the Tanana, whether it's in Shishmaref or Seldovia. Wherever you are, they have got the connectivity and the technology to allow you to stay connected with the world, whether that's with phone calls or text messages, surfing the internet, sending an email, whatever it is. Satellite West has got you covered. Special thanks to them for sponsoring the show across the state of Alaska today on the program. Again, find them at satellitewest.com with local dealers and everything else. We appreciate you being a part of it. Well, it's interesting. We see the movers and shakers in this state, the people who have gifted us with things like ranked choice voting and more. They have been busy. Not only have they been pushing and continuing to defend the ranked choice voting issue, they are moving on to some other ones as well. They're starting to talk a little bit about some new issues that could be on the ballot through Citizens Initiative. They, I don't know if I want to accuse them of weaponizing the ballot measure system or not, but it is a possibility. Andrew Kitcherman over at Alaska Beacon has got an article up talking about this. There are proposed ballot measures that would, 1, raise the minimum wage in Alaska, 2, add mandatory paid sick leave, and then 3, campaign limit contributions and state spending on party candidate nominations. The first one would make a series of changes to state labor law. It would raise the hourly minimum wage, which is currently at $10.85, to $13 starting July of next year. A year later, it would go to $14, and the year after that, it would go to $15, and then adjust according. It would have a locked-in inflation adjustment factor after that. It would require anybody who employs 15 or more employees to accrue 56 hours of unaccrued paid sick leave as well. So that's 7 full days of accrued paid sick leave. Smaller employers, anything with less than 15 employees, would have to offer 40 hours of paid sick leave. And it doesn't say here in the article, whether that's for full-time or part-time staff or whatever. But I can tell you, as a dad with a couple of teenagers and young people who are out there working, they're already having a hard enough time trying to. My kids are already having a hard enough time trying to make enough money to, they're going to have two jobs to live because they can only get, in most cases, a part-time job that will pay 30 to 35 hours a week because nobody wants them to go full-time to have to pay extra benefits and everything else. So it becomes a very difficult situation. Although I don't think that going to the ballot box with this makes a lot of sense. The measure would also bar employers from requiring workers to attend meetings on religious or political matters unrelated to their work, which I guess that makes sense. The guy who's fighting it and the primary sponsor is former state labor commissioner Ed Flanagan. He said that the fight for 15, which is what this is part of, took off soon after he and others proposed the state's last large minimum wage increase, which passed with the voters in 2014. Of course, which is supported by the AFL and the CIO as well. Joelle Hall is quoted in the article saying they support the measures, obviously, and she's excited to see that. Another measure that is being put forward this week would reinstitute campaign contributions limits. Now, those, remember, were struck down by the courts, basically saying that they were too low. But since the court couldn't set not that I'm complaining, the court couldn't set it, it basically meant that those contributions for this last election cycle have pretty much been unlimited. The ballot question that was submitted earlier this year was withdrawn after the Department of Law raised some concerns about the provisions. And of course, our good friend Scott Kendall, Scooter Kendall, is he's working to draft both versions of the campaign contribution proposal. And of course, you'll remember Scott is a big mover and shaker in the whole ranked choice voting issue, which immediately makes me, I think contribution limits are a good thing overall. I don't think it should be unlimited. As Brad talked about earlier in the last segment, there's some problems there with unlimited campaign contributions. But the fact that Scott Kendall is involved immediately makes me a little cautious. The measure would set a new series of limits for political candidates, parties, and groups. For example, contributions to individual candidates would be capped at $2,000 over a 2-year election cycle, essentially twice as much as the $500 limit for each year under the old invalidated law. Bruce Botello also is another primary sponsor of the measure. He's the former state attorney general and a luminary in the Democratic Party, and he is another primary sponsor of the measure. He's also a primary sponsor of the third measure submitted to the Elections Division this week. It would prohibit state money from being spent for political parties to choose nominees, whether by a party primary or a convention. Historically, the state parties like the Republican Party, et cetera, the state has paid for those primaries. And this would be another nail in the coffin of regular voting and basically solidify ranked choice as the voting system that everybody, they would say now, well, we can't go back to regular voting because now we've made it illegal for the state to pay unless the parties are willing to pony up the money to pay for the primaries or conventions that they've got going on. I don't remember how much it costs for the primaries. I think it's, I don't even want to say it's in the millions of dollars, low millions of dollars, usually to put something like that on statewide for a state primary. But that would then mean that the parties themselves had to pick up the bill for that, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. But this would make it, I think, harder for people to, I think this would make it harder for people to justify eliminating ranked choice voting if they knew that going back to the primary system that they had before would cost the state more money. So these are just a few of the things that are waiting in the wings. And as they had such success, they being Alaskans for better elections, which was again Scott Kendall's group. They had such a good run with this, and of course used out. You know what nobody really ever talks about, except for I think on this program a lot, is that those groups, that group put together and did this campaign for ranked choice voting, and they were so successful simply because they had a ton of money coming from outside. They spent $7 million advertising that campaign and getting it up and running with outside dollars. All of it, remember, was talking about bringing dark money out of the campaign, all the while being itself funded by dark money. So I think you'll see, and nothing in the ranked choice voting ballot initiative did anything to eliminate that dark money issue. And so if they're going to bring something else forward, guess what? There's going to be more dark money flowing into the state over these issues as well. So it should be interesting and exciting, to say the least. All right. What else we got? I guess that's it. I think we've hit all the stuff for now, and we are coming up on the break, so we might as well just hit it and take it out there. We're going to go. We're going to be back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. It's coming up on our time for Chris Story, who's going to bring us our weekly self-reflection period, our life coaching. He's going to help us. It's one of the segments that I look forward to every week over here on the program. I hope you enjoy it as well. So up next, it's Chris Story with our positivity break. We'll be back with more here in just a moment. It is the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this. Okay, in the break right now, ready to go. I mean, we're not ready to go. We need to, we got to get that stuff going. The silence is awkward, says Jeannie. Only just for a moment. You guys will, I know it'll pass. I don't know what's going on. Like I said, everybody else can hear it except for the internet. And I've changed some settings and done some stuff, and I don't know what's going on. And you know what? We'll live with it. I think we'll live through this. It'll be okay. We'll be fine. We'll make it happen. It'll be okay. And we'll deal with that here for just a second. Let me get Chris Story up on the line first things first here. And we'll see what's going on there. We'll see if we can get Mr. Story on the line before we go along here too much here. See if we can get the phones to work properly. Look at that. It's actually ringing. Okay. Burp, 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 burp.
Good morning, Michael.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You're a little early, but I'm always happy to be here.
Yeah,
with
a
you.
little early. I just wanted to make sure that we could connect, and that now you can. I'll put you back on hold, and you can go back.
Can I go back to sleep?
You can go back to picking your nose or whatever you were doing there. So it's going to be
Excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Okay.
It's going to be perfect. So hold the line here, my friend, and I'll be right back to you, Chris Story, the man from Homer, ready to do his thing here on the program as we continue ahead. Let me get caught up here in the chat room and see what's going on here. Let me go back to the top of the hour, see what I got. Harold, all the unsolicited advice in the world, as usual. Brian talks about coal, which would be fine, except for everybody is so anti-coal right now. They're trying to shut down the power plant in Healy that feeds Fairbanks right now. I mean, they just want Fairbanks to be more and more. I think they just want to force people out of Fairbanks. between that and the fact that they want to make everybody in Fairbanks use ultra low sulfur fuel, which has a significant jump up in there. Jeannie says he'll tell you it's better than smoking, that vaping is better than smoking, but barely. According to the Royal Cancer Society, it's 95% safer than smoking, but I don't really care. It's my choice. You guys, don't drink, don't smoke, don't watch retarded TV. Whatever you guys do, it's on you. I don't care. You guys can do what you want to do. Let's see, like a bear in the woods. Do we even have anthracite coal up here? It's mostly bismuth coal. But no. Okay, Harold. I'm still going through here. Wanted to feed them the plant. Demonstration product. Kids need to get out of Alaska, keeping the hares, leaving them in the fish tank. Go see the world, says Jeannie. I mean, I think if kids want to move outside, that's, there's opportunity. There is opportunity here. I would agree that it's not as great as it is down in the lower 48. Jeannie says Seattle has been $15 an hour for 5 years and has a sick pay program paid for by a payroll deduction similar to unemployment. You have to contribute for 1 year before you can claim the benefit. I don't know if that's exactly what the details of this one are as well, but we'll see. And I don't know why. This is Timothy says the mandatory minimum wage, the market already pays more than that. I mean, you can go by almost any fast food restaurant down here in South Central and see that they're advertising hiring help at $15 an hour already. So I don't know exactly why they want to know that. Terry agrees with what I said, which was if Scooter's involved, it's a bad deal. That's the whole thing. If Scooter is involved, it's immediately suspect. That's what it all comes down to. All right. We're about to jump back into it. We're 30 seconds out. Chris Story is with us, the man from Homer. Let's get all this squared away and see what he has to say. He's got some kind of life lesson for us today. We're not exactly sure what it is, but I'm sure it will be fantastic. We look forward to jumping into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. All right, welcome back to the program. Thanks for continuing with us. The Tuesday edition of the show, and as usual, it's one of the segments that I look forward to the most. It may not be, I don't know, the most popular with everybody because, it seems like everybody who's on talk radio, all they ever want to talk about is the politics and the problems, and it becomes like the daily bitch session over something. We like to talk about other things. We try and talk about solutions, but we also try and talk about yourself and getting yourself right. And even, gasp, being happy with where you're at while trying to stretch for more. And maybe that's why I enjoy having Chris on so much each and every week. He comes on and gives us a little bit of insight. I got to be honest, I really enjoyed our conversation last week, Chris, about your books and your authorship and the genesis of that. I thought that was a fun discussion. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for doing it.
Well, and I will say this, Michael, that I watched the sales tick up that day and the following day, and I have to say thank you. I think it was interesting to see a corollary. That's not why we discussed it, but I thought, well, that's an interesting impact because when you do know more about the genesis of a piece of art or even kind of what's what it might look like or sound like, people are more interested. So I appreciated the opportunity. I had a great time as well.
Yeah, no, I thought it's always interesting, especially to see a little bit of a different side of a guest who normally comes on to do one thing, but then you kind of pivot and show some of the other stuff. I thought it's always enjoyable. I just, I enjoy that kind of slice of life stuff. I don't do it as much on this program as I should, simply because I enjoy it more. But we're working on that. We're working on that. I'm working on Mark Cameron right now is supposed to be. I mean, he's super busy right now, but he's supposed to be working on a list of Alaskan authors for me, so that I can do more interviews with Alaskan authors, or as I did with James Bartlett a couple months ago, authors who are writing about Alaska, which I think is also an interesting topic. But
There's a
it's
great guy called John Muallen, like the cow, Muallen, and he wrote a book called oh shoot, I can't remember. It's here in my library. Chance. Yeah, I think it's anyways about a radio. A gal at the KFQD, I believe, in Anchorage during the '64 earthquake was maybe the only station to still remain on the air, and her broadcasting all the way through the '64 earthquake. And you would enjoy talking to him. I've had him as a guest, and I just reached out to him not that long ago, and I said, John, thinking about your book, wow, it would make an incredible Netflix series or a Hulu series, or
right.
pick which is the least evil streaming network, and do it there. It is so incredible. It's so well written. It is like it's a story. I mean, I had a lot of family here in Alaska at that time. I had no clue about this slice of it through the eyes of this one woman who saved lives, connected people. I mean, radio was really the hero of the story, but it's also Alaskans
Right.
stepping up, and it's a great book. I'll send you his contact. You'd
Yeah,
enjoy a
send me
conversation with him as
send me
well.
his contact info. I'd love to have a conversation about that. It'd be interesting. All right, well, let's figure out what do you have for us today as far as topics for our positivity segment, our betterment segment. What's on your mind, Mr. Story?
Times like these. I'm thinking a lot about times like these, and the idea that, boy, it's never been. I mean, in some ways, it's never been worse. We're at the edges of war in three places. We're at an economic war. We're at a political war, infighting, and it seems that divisiveness has never, since the Civil War, been greater here in this country, and
Right.
just seems like, man. And then Paul Harvey's voice and words wash over me. The thing about times like these is there have always been times like these. And so it made me think about something I'd read Mother Teresa had written. I call it an essay. Other people refer to it as a poem, but it's a series of just stanzas. And I thought, why don't we just go through this? Because this is timeless advice.
Sure.
This is pre-social media. This is pre-digital age. This is just literal advice that you can take into every aspect of your life. She opens with, people are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway.
Wait, what is
It's like,
I feel attacked. Wait a second. What was that? Illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered.
unreasonable. Yeah, forgive them anyway. And because you know who people are? You, me. She's referring to humanity. We can be unreasonable, illogical, self-centered. We should forgive them anyway. Like it's like Ronald Reagan said, it's not that the liberals are wrong, it's just so much of what they know is wrong, or I can't remember the exact quote, but it's that idea that we can still forgive yourself as well. And I think that's one of the harder aspects of that line to employ, is actually forgiving yourself for having ever been unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered, because we all are. We have all of these facets among us. So the next line is, if you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. Isn't that the truth? And especially when you're on, we joke around. There's a cesspool called Homer Communications. It's a page on Facebook, and you could go in there and say, I found a $20 bill, and I just want to make sure it goes back to the right owner. And you will have 50% of the people that are in that group attack you. They'll attack the monetary system. They'll attack everything. And it just suddenly turns into this, I was just trying to do something good. Be kind anyway. Do good anyway. I think Mother Teresa's right on about that. People will accuse you of being selfish and having ulterior motives. When you're kind, be kind anyway.
That group, by the way, is I bring the popcorn every time I open up that group, because I want to stay connected to Homer, my adopted hometown, and I always want to see what's going on. But boy, the second you open up that group, you're like, oh, here we go. Here we go.
Well, and that's what, when you think about it, it's social media in general. And social media isn't just Facebook or Twitter or Twitch or TikTok or the Instagram, whatever. It's Yelp reviews. It is Uber. It is Google reviews. It is everything that we use, these engines that have been designed to allow people to express themselves in a way that it can feel as though you matter or what you've done is something worthy or notable or no, it's not at all. It's gone. It's like it's like the sands of a low tide beach. You're going to be gone at high tide. It's not real. And yet we feel as though if you look at that, if you just looked at Homer Communications, for example, or pick one, I'm sure Soldado Nikita, I'm sure everybody listening probably has one of these dumpster fires in their own backyard that social media has allowed for this to go on. Suddenly you think, man, we're a bunch of mean people. No, it's not. It's just the keyboard warriors get to employ some kind of a sense of meaning, or
Right.
it allows it appeals to our lower nature,
Right.
and it's not reflective of what life is really like. And if you think about these things, like her next line, and Mother Teresa's next line is, if you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway.
It's true. I mean, you will. I mean, you're always gonna. I always felt like, well, somebody's gonna be mad one way or the other, and
Hmm.
so, but you got to persevere. You got to just keep going on. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for my family. Whatever that I'm trying to succeed in. And some people are going to be happy, and some people aren't, and you really can't control that. So you just got to go anyway.
Yeah, and it's it's like it's on Silicon Valley, which is a pretty hilarious little sitcom that aired a few years back. And the billionaire was talking about how he goes, "You just the problem with being a billionaire is you never know if you have real friends or they're just after your money." And so I love this line in reflection of that. If you're successful, you'll win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. There's this idea that if somebody has succeeded, somehow they're harming somebody else. It's like
Right.
Reagan said, I can get this correct, that the fat man standing next to the thin man, some people feel like he had to get that way by taking food from the thin man. And it's just not the way it works.
Right.
You're talking about the mandatory minimum wage and so forth. And it's like that. You cannot regulate success. You cannot bring government or regulation into the picture and guarantee or propagate success in a real market
Right.
space. And so these things happen. You will win some false friends and some true enemies because jealousy's out there. But as she says, Mother Teresa says, succeed anyway. Go for
Well,
it.
yeah, success is not a zero-sum game. It's not because one person succeeded, that means that the other person now doesn't have the ability to succeed. It's not taking away from anybody else. But that's kind of what's been perpetrated out there. And I think a lot of it's just envy and jealousy, and aversion to hard work, I think, is a lot of it. But like you say, you're going to offend somebody, so you might as well succeed anyway, right?
You just offended me. Her next line is, if you're honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. This is really hard stuff. This is really simple, and yet at the same time, you could probably teach an entire, high level college course on just these simple lines from a humble woman who gave her life to service. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. All of these things are prescriptive of what I think the good life is, what a quality of life is, and what you'll be remembered for. Like Angelou said, they'll forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so if you're honest and frank, you may get cheated. You may lose opportunities. You may alienate some people. Be honest and frank anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that. I'll be honest with you. I mean, just to put it into true, I've had that happen on the program where I've said some things, I've been honest, I've been frank, and I have lost business on the other side, outside of the show, simply because I was honest and frank on the show. And I just looked at that as part of the cost of doing business, of being allowed. I'm not going to temper my beliefs or ameliorate my beliefs by just simply to make sure that I make money somewhere else. That doesn't, you got to be true to yourself. Otherwise it just feels disingenuous. You got to be genuine to yourself.
The next line is, what you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. Isn't that the truth? I mean, you can spend your lifetime building something up or working towards, endeavoring towards something, a goal, creation of something that could be destroyed overnight. Hello, COVID 2020. Hello, businesses, restaurants, other than the French Laundry, of course, where Gavin Newsom can dine during the height of the lockdown, could be destroyed overnight. And that line probably meant something different to people building businesses prior to 2020. Wait a minute, destroyed overnight. Yep. How about the Alaskan governor creating mandates? Which has he ever answered for that, Michael? Have you ever talked to the governor, Governor Dunleavy, about whether or not he regrets those mandates and destroyed people's businesses and livelihoods overnight, or
No,
does he still stand tall for them? Or
I don't think we've had a discussion on that. In fact, I don't think we've had a discussion about much about anything in the last year. So, yeah,
yeah,
no, I don't think we've ever
interesting.
really had a discussion about that.
Just let's put a pin in that, because wouldn't that be an interesting conversation? We kind of have all moved on and things have changed, but let's not forget the mandates that the dictatorship that became our state. Wow, it's just that, and Mother Teresa's bringing that on to me. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build
Yeah.
anyway. Okay, put a pin in the standing tall for mandates. That would make a great segment title, though. Maybe you could get Dave Steeren or somebody from his administration, because he's busy. I get it, but standing tall. But maybe you could get somebody else in
He's
there.
standing
All right,
tall in
moving
the
on.
corner. Yep, exactly. All right.
If you find serenity and happiness, others may be jealous. Be happy anyway. Every now and then, did you ever see somebody that's got, so you and I do a multitude of things. We don't just do a job. We wear multiple hats. So do you ever feel at the end of the day or the week or the quarter or the month or the year, you just feel like thin, stretched out, and you see somebody that just has like a lot less going on and they just seem so happy. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be wonderful? If you find serenity and happiness, others may be jealous of that. Be happy anyway. I think that's excellent advice.
Well, I mean, yeah, I have been. As I get older, I find myself feeling a little more thin, stretched thin a little bit more on things. But at the same time, if I looked at, see, this is my mindset, I guess. If I looked at somebody that was doing less and they were satisfied and happy, I'd go, well, I could stop doing some of these things, but would that make me happy? And the answer to that would be no, because then I would feel like I'm not stretching. So I guess if your goal is to stretch yourself and do more, then you could probably anticipate feeling a little thin. But that goes back to how we react to our circumstances in it, because that's the only thing we can control, right? I mean, you and I chose to be busy people. You and I chose not to work the regular 9 to 5 and punch the clock only, but to do other things as well. And yeah, it's a little stressful sometimes. Yeah, it's a little nail biting sometimes. But at the same time, can you imagine just punching the clock I mean, to me, that would be akin to being in prison, I guess. Is probably the closest thing that I can think of in that time frame.
It's interesting. We're going through an exercise, Tiffany and I, of studying our values, what we value in alignment with the goals that we set and the things that we wish to accomplish, and creative and business and otherwise, and in family, the whole nine yards. And that really speaks to me when she talks about serenity and happiness. If you find serenity and happiness, the search for serenity and the pursuit of happiness is a big part of the joy of life. And
Right.
kind of, no matter how old you are, that continued pursuit, I think, is laudable. And just this idea of what are your values? If you value free time, and yet your goals are to accomplish 38 things in the next 28 days, you may want to look at that. What are you sure you value this? And if you do, if you really value x dollars in the bank surplus or whatever it is, are you in alignment with that, with your actions and
Right.
so forth? So that's, to me, serenity and happiness come with studying your values. What do you value, and what are you doing that is in alignment with those? Are your actions
Right.
supporting what you say you value? That's a great exercise. She continues, the good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway.
Right.
Do good anyway.
Yeah, do good anyway.
And her last line is maybe the most powerful. If you give the world the best you've got, it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway.
I mean, that's a very I have never heard this essay or poem or whatever, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, we have to do this is basically in spite of everything that goes on, do what you need to do anyway. Be good, do good, put that out in the world anyway, because there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be things like that. And it's powerful. It's a powerful statement. I like this.
And that an idea of her opening line, people are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. I really want to put an emphasis on forgive them anyway, including yourself, because I think that we're maybe as individuals holding some baggage from things we did, didn't do, wish we'd done, wish we'd said or not said. And I think it's important to take a minute and just let go and forgive yourself, forgive others that have trespassed you, not living in a life of victimhood and blaming generations. There's a Norman Vincent Peale tells a great story about meeting two brothers. They're a year apart in age. One brother's an alcoholic, the other brother is a teetotaler. Michael, that means he just doesn't touch alcohol.
Right.
So he
I
asked the
figure.
first brother, okay, I'll mansplain it to you later. So, oh, that could be another book, mansplaining. Two N's, mansplaining. Okay. So he asked the first brother, why are you an alcoholic? Well, my father was an alcoholic. So, oh, okay. Second brother was a teetotaler. Why are you a teetotaler? Well, my father was an alcoholic. So I became a teetotaler. We all have influences and things in our life. If we can forgive those generations ahead, the people that have done us wrong, and move forward, I think in our life and forgive ourselves and forgive other people around us, I think we'll be far better off as people and as a country.
Chris Story, the man from Homer. You could find him at ilovehomeralaska.com. He's also on the air on KPEN down in the peninsula, 1 p.m. today and on Thursdays. Chris Story, thank you, my friend. As always, it's good to talk with you. Appreciate you coming on board.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hold the line. Folks, we're out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Chris Story. Final bite at the apple, Mr. Story. Final bite at the apple. That's good stuff. I like that. I had not heard that from Mother Teresa before. I'll have to go back up and search that up. But it's do good in spite of everything that comes against you.
Yeah. These are all forces. Everything she's talking about are just basically not much different than gravitational force on you. Get up anyway. Gravity's going to pull you back down. Get up anyway. Walk anyway. Go somewhere. Do something. People will say what they're going to say. They're going to behave the way they're going to behave. They're going to criticize you anyway. So do what you want to do. Put your art into the world. We were talking about my books last week. I am under no illusion that I'm up for any sort of literary prize, Pulitzer Prize or otherwise, or Nobel Peace Prize for my writings. I'm writing what I want to and putting it into the world. And I'm open for criticism, and I will and have been criticized. I do it anyway. I don't care. I do it for myself because it's art. I consider it art. And in fact, I consider business as in life art. And so for that matter, if you think about it like gravity, all of the negative forces she talked about, or the negative consequences of doing good or being successful, or all the things that could come with that in this digital social media age or otherwise, doesn't matter. Think of it as gravity. It's always been there, irrespective of how it comes at you. Are you watching the hot dog gate here in Homer, Michael, on Homer Communications?
I saw a little
gourmet
bit of
hot dog?
that. I saw a little bit of that, and all I could think of is like, man, it's a free market. If you don't want to buy his $15 hot dog, don't buy his $15 hot dog. Maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. I don't know, but it just seems much ado about nothing. Quite honestly, it seems like people bitching to bitch.
If you were to just apply this poem to that situation, or this essay from Mother Teresa to that situation, from both sides, from both sides. Here's a guy yelling at people for their opinions. Here's a bunch of people giving him opinions which didn't ask for necessarily. It's just one of those things. If you were to just look at the slice of life in social media and go, oh man, I'd never start a business than that. I just am so grateful that social media wasn't around when I started my first business 30 years ago. It's like, you make mistakes, or you're a human being, or people
Right.
like you or whatever, and then social media just amplifies it and allows. But if you look at all of these stanzas of her essay and just say, do it anyway. Start your business anyway. Write your book anyway.
I would just say on Hot Dog Gate, first and foremost, don't ask for things if you're not ready for, don't ask for things on social media if you're not ready for the actual poo parade that's about to happen. You know what I mean? Because,
Right.
if you
Right.
ask somebody, my wife made some kind of comment anonymously on some group, and she said, I knew that this was going to raise questions, but it was just anonymous. She just asked, is there any restaurants out there that allow you to bring your dogs to like the outdoor patio, right? To like the outdoor patio area so you could eat outside. And she immediately got ripped to shreds about how dare you bring a dog to a restaurant and all this kind of stuff. And all she was saying was, is there an outdoor patio space? But it doesn't matter because people, they love to be outraged. And that's what it's all, that's what it's all going on about. It's just crazy. So.
And if you're going to do something in the world, expect that like a gravitational force, do it anyway. And, to your point, maybe don't go looking for it, but if it comes your way, deal with it as best you can. If somebody puts out something that is negative and inaccurate, then fine, correct the record and do it with some class and kindness and move on. But yeah, all of these things to say, even in this digital age, if you hear about it from other people, and I'm like, man, I had no clue this was going on. I had no clue. It's such a refreshing, fresh air space to live, clueless.
Yeah,
Just,
exactly.
living your life and moving on. And I'm sure that there's things that, are said about me. In fact, I know there are. There's one particular guy that has this, he can't stand my show. He can't even stand the way I say Homer, Alaska. When I say, on top of the world in Homer, Alaska, he can't stand it. And he posts about it. Like, I don't care. I'm not, all right.
Right.
I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do my show anyway because there's somebody out there that needs it and wants it. So I'm going to put my work into the world no matter what.
Yeah, you can't let the naysayers get you down. I mean, there's always going to be, no matter what you're doing, there's always going to be somebody out there fighting against it for whatever reason, their own reasons, whether rational or not, they're going to be. So you just can't let people stand in your way on that. You guys got to keep going.
Michael, do you get the Babylon Bee newsletter?
I occasionally get it in my feed, occasionally, and I laughed. I chortle.
The email is amazing. It says like today's headline was police investigating a corpse that washed up on Delaware Beach, and it's at Rehoboth Beach. It's Biden. His son, he's out on he's laying out in the sun. All right, take it easy.
All right, bud. I'll see you later. Thanks so much. You got to have that fun. You got to have it. All right, folks, we are out of time for this segment. We got more coming up. I actually have a line on hold. Apparently somebody really, really wanted to talk to me. So we're going to jump into that. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like it, share, like it, follow. Do all the YouTube-y thing. Oh, YouTube, I didn't tell you. I only need 40 more. Here we go. Okay, you guys ready? One final segment here of the program this morning, finishing up with Chris' story. Some good stuff there. Let's just jump on board here and see what you guys have to say. I left the phone lines open during the break, and somebody called in. So let's see what they want to talk about here before we proceed ahead with whatever I was going to talk about. We'll go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello, caller. Are you there? Final chance, caller. Are you there? Apparently not. Apparently they're not there. They called in and apparently just put the phone down. So there you go. All right. So anyway, I guess I'll leave the phone lines open. 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. Chris, I think makes a lot of valid points with his Mother Teresa analysis there. People are going to be mad. I mean, people are going to be negative. We see it. I mean, we see it here on the program. We see, there some listeners are happy. Some listeners, all they want to do is complain about what we're doing, that somehow we're not doing it right. There's always going to be people out there that love it or hate it one way or the other. That doesn't stop you from the responsibility of keep on keeping on, right? You still got to do the right thing. You still got to do the things in the way that you can, the way that you perceive them as being doing the right thing, I guess is what I'm saying on that. And people are going to be mad. And social media, oh man. Yeah, I've been watching this thing on the Homer Communications group. They're calling it the hot dog wars or hot dog gate or whatever that is down there. Some gourmet shop down in Homer some gourmet hot dog shop started in Homer. And he started asking for advice, which was his first mistake. He asked for some opinions on a group that is historically negative in nature. I mean, I love Homer, but boy, if you were part of the Homer Communications group, it is not a Convention and Visitors Bureau approved for showing you what Homer actually looks like. I don't think people are I don't think they're as harsh as they are in that group. But this first problem was actually asking for advice, soliciting advice from the group, and then being offended and shocked and reviled on the ground. He's just shocked about how it can all go on down there. But that's your first mistake. But social media in and of itself, although it is a fantastic tool for many different things, it is definitely not for the faint of heart. There's something about the anonymity of the internet. And this was especially true back before most people were using their real names, when it was just, screen names or usernames or whatever. And they would say some of the most outlandish stuff. And of course, that's translated slowly over into social media. I've seen things that people have said on social media that when you actually talk to them face to face, they would never say to you face to face, but they somehow feel empowered when they're in the privacy of their car or home or bathroom or wherever, and they're just madly typing away on their phone or their laptop or whatever. They just feel encouraged that they could just say whatever they absolutely want. And it's, it's kind of led to the death of civility in our society in a lot of ways. And I don't know why people are shocked when it still happens. I don't know why you would solicit criticism and then be shocked, I tell you, when when people do criticize you after you've solicited that. It's kind of crazy stuff, but I think it's a commentary on society as a whole for where we're going. And yes, it's a long-winded diatribe about what's going on in social media, but I think it's important. It's a part of our daily life. I mean, I broadcast on social media every day. How much time do I spend on it outside of that? Not much, because there's just not a whole lot well, I guess I shouldn't say that, because I do spend some time on it occasionally, cleaning my social media up so I don't see a bunch of random negative stuff on either on my side of the political. I mean, I have blocked or unfollowed people that are in my camp, right? That are on my side of the fence, simply because the way they present themselves to the world is so negative. Because who's got time for that? Who's got time for that kind of negativity? I mean, I think my social media feed at this point is made up more of food recipes, Dungeons and Dragons stuff, some gun stuff, some video game stuff, and movies. That's pretty much all my social media feed is right now, and I'm happy with that, because I don't need to know all the other stuff and everybody's political opinion on it. It becomes tiring. And it's a wonder why we're all on edge and we're all kind of at each other's throats, because we don't seem to be able to find the middle ground on the things that we can agree on versus the things that we disagree on. And it's a little disappointing, little disappointing that's where we're at today, but all we can do is keep fighting it. And as Chris said, um, you know, keep doing the good stuff anyway. Don't grow weary in well-doing is essentially what the whole Mother Teresa thing was all about, what we've been saying. Just because people are going to be upset with you or despise you or throw tomatoes at you or whatever, don't grow weary in that well-doing, because there's people out there who are going to throw tomatoes no matter what. I mean, we got it in the chat room right now, who will criticize you on everything from the cut of your jib to your weight to whatever it is. They find joy in that. They find some sense of satisfaction in that. And it doesn't matter that makes them, in some people it makes them smaller people, but it's just the way of the world. That's how people are. It's the human condition. That's what it's all about. Coming up on tomorrow's program, we will be joined in hour 2 by State Senator Mike Shower. He'll be coming on board to share with us how it's been going post session, if he has recovered from the battle that took place in there, and what he sees coming up for the upcoming session and the battles that are yet to come. So we get a chance, we give him a little bit of a breather and now give him a chance to recuperate and come back and talk with us tomorrow. So State Senator Mike Shower will be joining us tomorrow in the second hour, working on some other stuff for later this week. I think Mayor Dave Bronson actually wants to come on the program and talk with us about some stuff as well. His 2 years in office, celebrating now his second year in office. So we'll talk about that as well, and we'll see. Maybe this week we'll see if we get a chance to talk to them about that as well. So, okay, well, that was it. 2 hours of fun times and radio and good stuff, and hopefully some positivity. And hopefully you enjoyed it and you just didn't find it to be painful. If it was, I'm sorry. But I had a good time. And hopefully we shared it all out there. All right. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Okay, my friends. Well, I know not all of you are happy. I can't control that. Only you can control that. It's like I said the other day. Some people just want to watch the world burn. And they just want to pour gasoline on it. That's who they are. That's okay, I guess. As long as you acknowledge that and know that, you're good to go. All right, we got to fly. We will see you tomorrow, my friends. Have a great day.